The third talk, it's about your app is ready and you want to ship it. This means we learned now in the first talk how to program our app. The second talk was about how to optimize the app for the production, but there's one part missing. So we have the application, but that someone can see my application, can feel this application, of course, we have to deploy it somewhere. So what we will do now is we will learn how to deploy our app. So for Angular, there are multiple packages out of the world. One is from the official Azure repository. It's called ngDeploy. This one helps you to deploy your application to the Azure Static Hosting. There's another one which is called ngx AWS Deploy. This one, for example, will deploy your application to an Amazon S3 bucket. Another one from site, which will deploy to a Now environment. So there are really many application cloud providers, and there are a lot of packages which help you to deploy your package to the cloud. So, and all of them, they're pretty easy to use. So what is necessary? Of course, you need an account, depending on what do we want to use. If you want to deploy to AWS, Azure, doesn't matter where, you need, of course, an account for this cloud provider. This is this is mandatory, otherwise you can't deploy it. The other thing, you just install these plugins, and all of them, they have a deploy action hook. This means with the Angular CLI, I think it was the 8 or 7, can't remember, they introduced the schematic deploy. This means it's the same like if you use Surf or you run the tests, you run the linting, you can run the deployment with deploy, and that's all. The deployment is running, and you will have your application in the cloud. It sounds pretty easy, right? So, but there's the huge but. All of them, they have also the same issues. What happens with your infrastructure which gets created? All the resources, you have no clue. You just get it's the result, an URL, your application is there, but what happens with under the hood? What kind of resources are created? You have to figure out for yourself which resources created where, for which provider, how much does it take, or how much is the cost for it. So you have to research the plugin for yourself, what happens under the hood. The second one is all the provider there, the resources are not customizable. Just imagine you have this Azure plugin, you put it to the Azure static host, but what is if you want to configure the static host somehow? You want to configure a CDN and whatever, it's not really possible for the most plugins. They are really nice quick entrance, but if you want to go further, you will hit already walls. Another thing is you can't really deal with multiple app requirements. What is if you have multiple apps and you want to connect them somehow? You have a backend and front-end app. It's not really working because the purpose of these plugins at the moment are really strict. Just deploy your application and your to the cloud. Another thing is, which I recognized, what is if I want to go offline now? So I have my app on the cloud, and but I want just to disable this application, take it offline. I have to destroy all the resources. The most of them, they don't provide you a kind of a destroy functionality. So you have to do it for your own. You have to go to the cloud provider, UI or CLI, whatever. You have to know what to destroy. It's getting really complicated. So all in all, this means for me, the most plugins which we have there, they are really not suitable for enterprise applications. So the question will be, can we have an easy deployment functionality and the support of enterprise applications? What is if we would have both? So, and what is if we can even have more? There's a really nice answer for this, and it's called ngDeploy. With ngDeploy, you get a simple setup. The infrastructure is written in TypeScript. So all the code, all the resources are in your repository. You can read directly what is created. It's in your file base. It's completely extendable. Imagine you have an infrastructure, but you have to put the backend behind the VPC, or you have multiple backends. With one is just communicating to the database, and this must be in the VPC too. So everything can be extended with NX deployed in your code base. Then NX deployed supports multiple browsers. You can choose which one you want to use. Is it AWS? Is it Azure? Or even Google Cloud? And the next cool thing, it supports not just Angular, it supports React, it supports Nest.js and Express.js. Means you have support for the front end and for the back end. And if you talk about the topic, I want to go offline now with my whole architecture applications. So it's quite easy. It provides a destroyable infrastructure command. You have just to run, hey, please destroy everything for me, and it will be done for you. How does it look like? So the first thing is we have to create a workspace. You can do this with NX. I'm a huge, big fan of NX. It is extensible dev tooling for monorepos created by Naro. And but you could use Angular CLI too if you just have an Angular application. The next thing is, if you have your workspace ready, you just install the package like all the other package extensions. You just say ng-add, tell the package name, dev thought, NX deploy it. And if it's installed, it automatically invokes a scan schematic, which means it will scan your workspace for applications. So if it will find an Angular application, it will ask you, should it set up the infrastructure for this Angular application? If it finds a Nest.js application, it will also ask you if you want to set an infrastructure for this Nest application. So it's kind of a predictive installation and checking what can it do for you. You just need to talk a bit to him. So after everything is done, the comments are pretty similar to the other one. You can just run the ng run command. You tell him which project you want to deploy it and the environment. The same is with if you want to destroy everything, you just say destroy instead of deploy. So, but enough with talking. Of course, we want to see how it looks like. It sounds amazing, but yeah, we will prove it. So I created a workspace here. I don't want to bother you with a waiting time of 5 minutes, because creating a workspace with NX takes a bit of time. So let's open this one. This workspace contains an Angular application and the Nest.js application. We can find here the Angular JSON and everything. So it's a simple scaffolding. And what we will do now is we will call this ng-add command. Deploy it. And of course, yeah. npx installed it, ng is not installed. Then let's install it. What's going on? Wrong. Or I have to go inside. Sorry for that. So npx again, because if you scaffold something with the nx create command, it will install all the dependencies. But of course, you have to be inside the workspace. My mistake. So it will install now the dependencies, and then it will call the scan schematic. It is binded via ng-add alias. And after that, we will see, he will ask me some questions. And in the meantime, I can talk about a bit more about infrastructure as code. So what NX deployed is doing, it uses Pulumi under the hood. Pulumi is an infrastructure as code tooling, which gives you the opportunity to write the infrastructure in your favorite language. It can be TypeScript, Python, or C#, whatever. They have multiple languages. Just choose what you want. NX deployed was concentrating completely on TypeScript because NX itself is on TypeScript. Angular is written on TypeScript. The most people are writing in TypeScript, and that was the reason. So NX was installed. It found now 2 packages. One of them is my front end. It tells me the project name is my front end app, and it's an Angular application. So I can say, yeah, please, I want this one to be set up. And it automatically detected an API project, which is Nest.js application. So I'm saying, I want both. Please configure me. Now it asks me, so which provider do you want to use? I can choose between these 3 at the moment. More can be, coming depending on the feature requests. I will take the AWS one. For AWS, so every provider has some specific setup. Depending on which provider you choose, he's asking more questions. For example, for AWS, it's asking you if you want to use a special profile which you set up in your CLI. So I'm using a special profile which is using my infrastructure in my company. And then I have to choose which region I want to deploy. I have no idea which is the closest region to Dubai. I will just take one in Europe, and you can type something. It will automatically minimize the possible solutions. So let's take EU Central 1. This is Germany, Frankfurt. After that, this was with the questions. It creates some files. It updates some files. It will install now all the necessary packages. So it will install Pulumi under the hood. This is what I said. This is the infrastructure as code tooling, what it's used. And in the meantime, when he is installing the dependencies, we can take a look at the tree. And hopefully it should show me the changes. Yes. So what happens? He adds some dependencies. So he added the Pulumi package, then the Pulumi package for my provider. So I was choosing AWS. That's why we can see Pulumi AWS. For Pulumi AWS, when you want to deploy the Nest.js to as a Lambda function, it needs some special packages. This is the AWS Serverless Express package. Then the Angular JSON gets a bit manipulated. It adds to the project the comments. One of them is the deploy and one the destroy. The deploy one gets the properties which you set up. So every time if you want to change something, you can do it directly in Angular JSON. All the configuration will be here, nowhere else. So it's pretty common for you, like all the other things. Here we can see, for example, if I do a development deployment, it uses no CDN. If I do the deployment on production, it will use a CDN. But we will do it definitely today, just the development deployment, because deploying a CDN in AWS CloudFront, it takes a bit of time, and I don't want to bother you with waiting for it. Destroy the same, some properties which are necessary. Let's go to the API. Here we can see the same, some setup with the required properties. And that's about the configuration itself. In your applications, this is the Angular application. It creates a folder. It's called infrastructure. So here you can put everything which is related to your infrastructure. And here you can see, for example, the entrance file is the index.js. Here you will find code which creates the whole infrastructure for you. So this means everything. You can configure how you want. Of course, there are some things you shouldn't touch, otherwise the plugin can't anymore handle it. But all in all, you can modify a lot of things here. You can extend it with VPNs. You can create, for example, in your API infrastructure, a database and what you want. So everything is in your hand. Everything is clear, readable, and you know exactly what happens. So in the meantime, it should be finished everything. Yes, cool. So what we want to do is we have now an application, a front end and a backend application. So we will deploy now first the backend application, because after we deploy the backend application, we know the URL, which will be reachable for our API. So we will do an ng run. our API. We say deploy, and here we go. We build now our backend. The backend is deployed has a special deployment process because it will bundle all the files in a single file, because all the serverless functions are it's not easy to handle them. If you have to upload the whole bundles and all the things, it's easier to bundle them in just one file, and therefore we use a special package, and this happens here. So after that, Pulumi is checking now my infrastructure and tells me exactly what gets created. So I have an overview exactly about what needs to be created. I can check for myself, what does it mean on AWS? How much does it cost for me? Okay, I see. It will create a Lambda function. It will create an API gateway. So I can directly check out if it's necessary how much will cost me, and all the informations. What is behind the scene? What behind the scene happens here? Everything is completely clear, and you can see what exactly what happens. So it asks me, of course, do I want to change it, or do I want to perform the changes? I say, of course, yes. So now it will deploy all the things, and therefore we have to wait again. Should be pretty quick. Yeah. So some facts about Pulumi in the meantime. Pulumi uses under the hood Terraform. For sure, everyone was already hearing about Terraform. I think this is one of the most famous infrastructure as code tools, which are not really related just to a provider. So Pulumi uses under hood Terraform. If you find something on Terraform, you will find it on Pulumi too. That just Pulumi puts the sugar around that you can use TypeScript, which makes it in some cases really much way easier than Terraform. So we can see now the endpoint output means here's my URL where I can access my backend to see what is created in my backend. Let's take a quick view. So I have a Nest.js application. This is my controller. This means here's a get resource under hello. Okay, so under hello I have access to my response. So this is my backend application. Nothing happens. Nest.js tells me you can find nothing, of course, because we have hello. And if we open hello, here we are. Welcome to API. We are directly in the cloud, and we can use now this backend as a Lambda. So it's a serverless function. Okay, cool. So we have now our URL for the backend. We can copy it. And now we can go to our front end. Let's go to the front end. We have here an Angular application. This is the Bootstrap application. We just put it here. Of course, we can put it in environments and everything, but just for the easy case now here, we put it directly here. We saw we have just the hello under the getter hello. So we have to put the hello here too. We save it. And what we will do now is we will apply our front end. So our front end name was, can somebody remember, my dash front end dash app, my dash front end dash app, and we want to deploy it. Here we go, building the app. So here's the normal build process from Angular. We will just wait, it will compile everything. And after that, the same procedure like in the backend, Pulumi will invoke the infrastructure, will check what needs to be created, and will ask me which changes needs to be done. Infrastructure as code tools, they have a state. It's the same like the state management in Angular or on React or somewhere else. Because at some point, if you change something in infrastructure, you don't want to deploy everything again. That's why this state gets saved somewhere. And Pulumi is open source. You can put the state on AWS, on your provider, on AWS, Azure, whatever you use. You can use Pulumi Self as a service. They have a service which can take the state. Depends on you what you want to do. For local development, you can just set up the local state. If you want to experiment, it's up to you. But you definitely save the state. Otherwise, the Pulumi Self, so NX deployed, doesn't know how to handle the infrastructure if something changed. So let's deploy it. We can see here it will create now S3 bucket, and all the S3 bucket objects means all the files. And this will take a bit of time, but it's quite fast. If it's not a CDN, it's pretty quite fast. Here we go. The bucket was created. This is pretty nice too. You can see directly which of the resource was already created. So almost done. Doop, doop, doop. Here we go. And there we are. We are online with the front end and the back end. So we open our application and we saw it. Here was at the beginning null, and then the request at the backend was done, boom, and we have the answer. Is it cool? So we have a front end and the backend deployed in so easy steps. We can completely configure what we want. We could extend a database, a DynamoDB, for example, for AWS. We just need to put the infrastructure here and how to program it. We can just go to Pulumi. Everything is written there. It's pretty easy to understand. The only thing which is a bit harder at the beginning is, of course, how the architecture at your provider is working. But for the most things, you can really easy get into it. So just to show you what means state exactly. I don't like to ask the hello endpoint. I want directly the endpoint with my message without an extra resource path. So in the front end, we say we will remove the hello. So we can deploy now the change. We do it again. We make a deployment. Of course, the Angular application will build again. And then let's see what happens with our state. What do you think? So please feel free to give me an answer or write a chat. What are you expecting now? Don't be shy. Here we go. So Pulumi has a state and it knows exactly, hey, I have the bucket already. I have all the files and there is a new build from Angular, but the only things which has changed is just the main bundle. So the only thing what I need to do is to upload the main file. All the rest is untouched. I don't need to change something. I don't need to upload the other things. I say, yes, please upload the change. And here we go. And we'll upload the change. Doop-de-doop. Updated, and here we go. We can go back to the URL, make a refresh, and nothing should happen because it will throw an error, a 404, because we just changed the front end now. So there we see the 404 because this is the answer of our backend. Okay, let's change the backend. Let's go to the API, to our controller. Here's our controller, and we said, hey, I don't want to have an extra resource path. Let's do it like this. We save it. We start the other deployment, the API deployment. Here we go. Let's run it. Of course, again, we have to build it. Take some time. So now again, Pulumi will check the state. What happens? What have been changed? Okay, it recognized, hey, the content of the Lambda function has changed. We have to update it. Updated. Here we go. I go directly on it. So we should now get directly the answer. Welcome to the API without the hello. And if I open the other one, I make a refresh. Here we go. We see we have it. So you saw how easy is it to deploy it with NX deploy it, how easy is to make changes, how easy is to see what happens really under the hood. And the next steps for you could be, of course, extending your infrastructure with your own requirements. It could be VPC, how I said, and database for your backend, whatever. It's completely, you are so free, you can do whatever you want. Okay, let's go back to that. And that is all. So thank you and stay healthy. My name is Mitko. I'm organizer of ngDubai. Really, really thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed every talk. Oh, good point. Do we have any questions for the third talk? I don't see anything. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to talk still about topics in the talks here, which were in the slots, feel free, come to Discord, ask there, and yeah, have a nice evening, have a nice morning, have a nice day, depending on where you are. Yes, we will do this. We will ship definitely the record, and you can enjoy everything. The links will be posted too in the Meetup group in the event. You will see all the all the links later. Thank you so much, and goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Where is the beer?